Hello, everybody. Welcome to Family Teacher Teams. This is part two. Just want to really reintroduce you to all of our team members. If you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Addie. So my name is Michael Serban. I am the Director of Family Community Engagement. Sandra Candler is second in command to supervise the FACE team. She is our FACE supervisor and supports our 17 community liaisons. We also have Janice Raymond, our teacher facilitator. Family community engagement. She's a retired teacher, but is phenomenal and has done amazing work with all of our teachers to really get them up to speed on what family and community engagement is. So that's your FACE team and your FACE resources. And we also have two amazing humans here, which you've will hear more about from later. Here's Addie, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Janet.
Hi, everyone. My name is Addie Lee. I'm the assistant principal at Meridian, but have been working on family teacher teams with the FACE office for about 3 years now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jana Leonard. I'm the program specialist for data and assessment, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And the goal for this training is really to understand the why. Meridian has, we often hear in family community engagement and in general when we try new things that like, where does this actually working? We have many schools that have implemented family teacher teams, but Meridian has done some exceptional things, specifically kind of revamping the idea, if you've heard of family teacher teams before, really around the idea of data and thinking through it in a holistic lens of what family teacher teams actually looks like for Meridian and how they've evolved it from just even where we started with it a few years ago. We're going to look at the why family engagement is successful for the success and growth of our students, that it's really linked to that. It's about the success and growth of our students. It's not about a dissemination of information. That's what back to school night was. Family teacher teams is about student growth and building relationships and partnerships. And then we're obviously going to have resources throughout this entire presentation.
All right, so throughout the presentation today, you'll see some of the district's 8 promises on the slides. This was in hopes of connecting what we're doing with family teacher teams to our MVPs, and really just bringing home that we should be seeing and thinking about and implementing these MVPs in every day at our schools, and family teacher teams is a beautiful way to hit a lot of our MVPs that we have here at the district that we're working on. So you'll see those at the bottom of the pages on most of the slides. And I just wanted to put that in here so you guys understood why those were there. So today, Mike already went over it a little bit, but we're going to hear about just Meridian's example of family teacher teams and how we revamped it. Mike will be talking about some family engagement and connecting family engagement to family teacher teams. Jana will be going over some of the data that is demonstrated or the success is demonstrated by the data that we have. And then at the end, we'll have a couple resources for you. So at the beginning of our year last year, I was thinking a lot about how to kind of reopen the doors after COVID, or kind of in a COVID sort of year. And I had the pleasure of listening to Dr. Trudy Arriaga speak about opening doors for students. And the first thing that I thought about was our family teacher teams and how we can revamp our family teacher teams so that we are opening doors for all students. And just really thinking about how family teacher teams can help with the growth for our students, their academic success, and then also creating equity and equality in our classrooms and across our schools. So she was kind of my anchor in thinking about how do we open doors for our students and how family teacher teams can help support that. Working with the principal at Meridian, Steely Johnson, we really talked about after the years really wanted to simplify and come back to what were our 3 kind of pillars that we wanted to work on. And this was last year. And so these were the 3 pillars that we came up with our staff. The first was the Meridian Way. We really wanted to hit home on our PBIS and our behavior management as a school. We had a large literacy focus this year. And then we really wanted to reopen the door to family and community engagement and connection at our school. Family teacher teams hits all three of these because we look at literacy. We're really talking about expectations at the school and creating those teams with families. So family teacher teams really touched on all three of our pillars, and especially the family and community connection. And just thinking about our students at Cajon Valley and specifically at Meridian, we really talked a lot with the staff about how we have students from all over the world. And when thinking about opening doors for our students, it really comes down to creating relationships with our families. And this is just a map to kind of demonstrate specifically Meridian, where kids come from all over the world. They speak different languages from right here at home in San Diego all the way to, we have students that are from Turkey and Syria and even Central Africa. So just really thinking about how we can empower our staff to know where our kids are coming from, know their stories, know them deeply so that we can help them thrive, was one of the things that I wanted to make sure our staff knew about their students. All right, Mike, you ready?
Yeah, so why family engagement? So really the whole intent of family engagement is, some people think that family engagement is connecting and having a community liaison that goes out there and speaks the language of some of the community, and that they're out there building relationships. That's a piece of family engagement. True family engagement is about the building of authentic relationships. And this is our mission and our vision, which is tied to our district vision, is it's building those authentic relationships between a staff and a parent, so that we can have academic and social emotional outcomes for students, so that we can have our district vision, which is all students are happy, healthy, and on the path to gainful employment. That's the true point of family engagement, is building those relationships. It's not any one person's responsibility to have family engagement. It's every single person's responsibility to have family engagement. And whenever we find ourselves talking at parents, which often is what happens in back to school night, having been a principal, a parent and of students in our district, as well as a teacher, that's often what we do, is we talk at parents during this experience, as opposed to having an opportunity to completely flip it, and which is what family and teacher teams is all about. So really thinking about that purpose of building relationships to change those outcomes for students. And family engagement, family teacher teams is all based in research. This isn't my great idea or Addie's great idea or Jana's great idea. This is research-based practice that comes out of Harvard, as well as, which we'll talk about West Ed in a minute, is where the research comes from too. But family engagement has been researched for years. And here's just a video that shows a little bit of our kind of mentor at Harvard, Dr. Karen Mapp, speaking about family engagement.
For someone who might come to you and say, well, Chancellor Henderson, family engagement really doesn't matter. What we're really supposed to be focused on is teaching and learning. What would your response be to someone who came at you that way and said that to you?
So I would say that anybody who thinks family engagement is not important is missing an important chance to really accelerate student success. They're missing an important chance to have better solutions and better ideas for the work. And most importantly, they are missing the chance to ensure that whatever work they do is sustainable.
We have a lot of research that shows that when families are involved and engaged, students do better. We know that.
Again and again and again, you see that families' input, family support, and families' engagement is related to youth's outcome, both in the elementary school and the secondary school level.
The more we focus on the partnership and the collaboration, the greater and the broader the effects become.
What would you say to the people who say what parents do makes no difference whatsoever?
I want to know what planet they live on. I don't know why anyone would take seriously the idea that parenting doesn't matter.
I'd say it's hard to hold that view if you look at the evidence. Empowering parents with specific actionable things they can do to support student achievement leads them to actually do it and improve student success.
And that's what really family engagement is about. It's about and specifically family teacher teams, breaking it down, building the relationship so that they care about you, because that's the only way to move forward is through that relationship. And more importantly, it's about giving the parents something small and actionable based on data to impact simply over a short period of time or a long period of time, a few months, where if they do this one thing often enough, and the only reason they're doing this thing is because of the relationship you built, and that relationship you built is going to happen through this experience called family teacher teams. Now, again, I said this isn't, we named it family teacher teams. The actual research-based name that they use through West Ed, which created this experience, is academic parent teacher teams. We just liked the sound of family teacher teams better than we did academic parent teacher teams. But all the research is here that shows that when you do this, academic outcomes for students change. Simply, you gain 30 tutors in the classroom by empowering the parents through relationship.
Can I highlight something that I always hear you say, Mike, and I heard it a little bit in the video,
Sure.
but really identifying the difference between parent involvement and parent engagement. And parent involvement is our historical open house where our parents are there, they're listening, but we're not engaging them in a partnership to work with us. Family teacher teams is really designed to empower families to be engaged in working with us to support their student.
100%. It's all about engagement. It's about bringing that opportunity to make them feel a part, but not just a part, to give them an actionable item of something to do, and to include them in the creation of the experience so that if it can be done better, parents are involved in that as well. Thanks, Jana. Here you go, Addie.
So this slide just kind of highlights what Jana was actually just speaking to about thinking about the traditional family teacher teams traditional back to school night versus family teacher teams. And back to school night, we would consider it parent involvement. Like Jana was saying, the parents are there, they're engaged in what you're saying, but they are a passive participant. They're sitting and listening. Mike has a great story about this with going to his own child's back to school night, that he just sat and gathered and tried to gather all the information, but he was really just sitting as a passive participant in his child's back to school night.
I'll share that right now, Ratty, just 2 seconds. I mean,
Yes,
here's
no.
the deal. Since I'm here, why not? The reality is when I dreaded that experience because I hated it as a teacher, because all I did was talk at parents and I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have any other options. This is something different. And as a principal, I dreaded it going into the experience because it was just a one-way conversation. My wife, here's the joke. My wife and I would rock, paper, scissors before every parent teacher conference of Gabe and Harmony of who had to go. And it was in our district. We were like, rock, paper, scissors, oh my gosh, who's gonna, win or lose today? And whoever, won got to stay home and watch TV, and the other one had to go experience, and it's nobody's fault. It's just what we've done. And so, we try to get the information in those experiences, but there's so much, we get overwhelmed, and I just often tuned out. So that was my experience and my desire to we have to do something different. And then to be able to find a research-based practice that shows that difference, that's what family teacher teams is. And I am so excited about it. Sorry, Addie.
Oh, no, please don't apologize. And so the teacher is an expert at back to school night. They're mostly doing things to us and talking to us rather than involving parents. And then it's also very much information focused. And if you refer over to the family teacher team side, it's more about parent engagement and parent empowerment. They are an active participant in the family teacher teams, which in parts 3 through 5, we'll talk more about what that looks like. But just thinking about the difference between the two, you're really creating a team with the families and the school, and it's all staff. It's not just the teacher that's in the classroom with the families, it's every single staff member on campus. And throughout the family teacher team's experience, they're doing things with the teacher, they're doing things with their students, which at the end of the day is all in hopes of building a relationship that with the teachers, the staff, and the families at our schools. Okay, so now we're going to kind of talk about, we talked about the data and family engagement and how that pertains to family teacher teams. And today we really wanted to show the example of Meridian because we did have a lot of successes coming from the family teacher teams that we've held in the past, and then kind of revamping it this year as well.
Can I add, Addie? Just to this piece right here, when Addie's talking about the successes, this isn't Meridian bragging. This isn't like, look at us, we did some great things, parents were happy. This is data that you're going to see that shows that through family engagement, students grew academically, which is hard to pin down with family. Sometimes you do family engagement, you don't know if it's made a difference. This is the data that shows that it works. And so, yes, they had success, but it's not just feel-good success. It's actual hardcore data that shows this made a difference for students.
Thank you, Mike. It's hard to talk about yourself but it is important to share. So thank you. So just going back again, Jana's going to share a little bit about the data that we collected and what it shows for family teacher teams. But before we talked about that, I just want to bring us back to the Meridian's pillars, because through family teacher teams, we were able to hit all three of these pillars. And we were able to gather data that showed that family teacher teams has an impact on our behaviors at our school. It has an impact on our literacy, which was a focus for us this year. And then of course it has an impact on our family and community engagement. So Jana's going to kind of talk through the actual numbers that we gathered and how we gathered that. But again, this is just an emphasis on the why behind family teacher teams and how it can really impact not only a classroom, but a school.
So we took a look at iReady with Meridian, specifically to their family teacher teams to see if it was working and what was happening with their growth in iReady. We used iReady because it's district-wide, because we're already using it, and because it measures student growth specifically. It's such a wonderful measure of how students are growing. So the information you're seeing on this slide is as of February of 2022. So this was diagnostic 2 last year, not diagnostic 3. So we looked at growth from diagnostic 1 in September to diagnostic 2, and 60% of students in the district were on track to make their typical growth in reading, and 58% were on track to make their typical growth in math. And what that means is at that point, 60% of students in the district, or 58, depending on if you're looking at reading or writing, were on their way to make 1 year's growth. That's what we consider typical growth. So projected on diagnostic 3 by the end of the year, they would have made at least 1 year's worth of growth, which is our goal, that all students are making at least 1 year's worth of growth. When we look at Meridian, same time, same diagnostic, 78% of students were on track, meaning 78% of all of Meridian students were on their way to make a year's growth in reading, and 71% in math. So that's 18% higher than the district average in reading and 13% in math. Now, this doesn't just mean that family teacher teams was the only thing that led to this. Meridian had 3 pillars they were working on. They were focused on literacy and small group instruction. They were focused on PBIS and positive supports with students. And we also looked at a couple of other things that I'll show you in a moment, but family teacher teams and the relationship component was huge in that as well. So all of the things they were doing increased their growth so much. And then, go ahead and move forward. We kind of honed in on what it looked like with just family teacher teams at Meridian. So we divided their iReady information into students whose families participated in family teachers teams, and students whose families did not participate in family teacher teams just at Meridian. And here's what we saw. In 2nd grade, 92% of students whose families came to family teacher teams were on track to make their typical year's growth. So you can see the difference between students who had their families come and participate in family teacher teams throughout the year and students who didn't have families participate. In 2nd grade, 33% more on average were on track to make their typical year's growth, 39%, and then all the way to over half of students. And so that's a huge impact. And when you see that 231% and 152%, that really means that they're exceeding their typical year's growth. So they're making more than a year's worth of growth. So that's huge. And I think I said that wrong. I'm going to back up a little bit. So this was their typical growth. So in second grade, the average typical growth was 90%. I think I said that 92% of students were making their typical year's growth. This is actually looking at the average typical growth. So already in February, 92% of second graders were, no, sorry, second grade, I keep saying this wrong, I'm so sorry. Second grade, the average typical growth was 92%. So when you're looking at the 152%, in fourth grade, a lot of students were exceeding their typical growth and kind of catching up and making more than a year's worth of growth, which you can see is significantly more than the students who did not have family teacher teams. So huge praise, and look at how much work they did there at Meridian. This is big. These are really incredible numbers that in fifth grade, students are growing more than 1 year. In fourth grade and third grade, students are growing more than 1 year because they have that support and that relationship with home and that connection.
And it's not just a support, the connection, the relationship, which it is. It's also the idea that in these classrooms, the attendance that and Addie, you can speak to this, but the attendance that you had in second, third, and fourth grade of parents coming to family teacher teams was, I would say in most cases, above 80%, 90% of the kids or the parents came to this experience. So a small portion of the kids didn't come. So we're getting this growth, not from the 3 parents that always come to every back to school night or parent teacher conference, or in this case, family teacher teams. We're looking at like 80% of the class, 85% of the class had this incredible growth because they came, and amongst other things, but that a piece of the puzzle.
And it doesn't mean that students aren't growing anyway. I mean, if you're looking at the average of, fifth grade, the average in general of students who were not in family teacher teams was still really high, but it's so much higher when we engage our parents and they're there and we increase all of the attendance and we're doing all of those things. That's a significant difference in students. And we want them to make years worth of growth. But if we can make them stretch and grow extra grade levels, we have that opportunity with family teacher teams.
We found that, especially with, I don't like always referring back, but especially with the COVID years, we found that there were students, especially in the upper grades, that had a lot of growth to be made. And so we were just very happy that family teacher teams was able to support and help with, our 30 tutors at home now with actionable things that they're doing at home with those kids, that really showed in the iReady growth that we had for those, especially for those upper grade kids that, they really did lose some strong academic time during COVID. So we were really happy to see that growth being made.
And the only reason we have, and every teacher since the dawn of time has wanted 30 tutors in the classroom. And every teacher since the dawn of time has told their parents that they want them as tutors. The difference with family teacher teams is we're building relationships. So they want to be tutors. That's the difference. That's really the biggest difference, is we build the relationship so we have the trust, so they'll actually take the actions forward.
I would also add that because of the relationship, we can ask that one thing that they're doing at home. Without the relationship, that one thing isn't going to happen. But I think that one thing is also really important, because I know when I was in the classroom, I would give all of these resources and 50,000 things because I wanted all of my students to succeed, but that's overwhelming. And as a parent, and now being a parent on the back end, I get 50,000 things and I may not do anything because it's too much. And so going home as a parent with just one thing, I can do this one thing and I know I will help my student. That's huge. And just, it's okay to just give one thing.
And if you think of this analogy, when you go to IHOP for breakfast, if you go to IHOP, you have 500 choices, and you often are like, pancakes, you choose the same thing over and over again because that's what because there's too many choices, or you don't choose anything. Or if you get In-N-Out, what do you get? A hamburger, right? How many hamburgers do they have? They have hamburgers. That's all they have. And so it's the one thing that really makes the difference in simplifying and making it for the teachers that we don't have 7 homework assignments. We have 1, and it's related to family teacher teams. And then everybody can focus on it.
Go ahead. And this doesn't mean that iReady is the only thing we can look at, or there's a follow these exact steps and you've done family teacher teams can look a lot of different ways. And here's another example. This is a kindergarten example that was done also at Meridian, and using letter sounds. So iReady is one option. It's not the only option. The big piece is you're building the relationship and you're giving families one thing to look at, and you're using data to be able to decide, are students making growth in the area that you're looking at? So it can look a lot of different ways. So here's the example of kindergarten, and it's a little overwhelming to look at as a graph. Historically in family teacher teams, this is what we would share with families. We're really working towards being able to share just individual student growth. So now that we're looking at this idea as a teacher-facing graph where you can see all of your students and you know how much growth your students are making. So to give you a little information on what this graph is actually telling us, the gray bar, and correct me if I'm wrong, Addie, the gray bar would be the baseline in September of how many letter sounds students knew. Did I say that correctly? Okay. And then
your initial assessment, yeah.
Initial assessment, so that baseline piece. The blue bar is the growth between what you would have seen in September or that initial assessment and their next check-in, which was like end of October, November, it looks like. So kind of parent conference time. And so you would show families, they started here, look how many more letter sounds they know now. And then green would have been that final check-in. Looks like this one was done in February, but kind of having 3 points, 3 touch points on growth. And you can see students made a lot of growth.
And
now,
the difference between the bottom part too is the numbers on the bottom. If they're yellow, those are families that came, and if they're white, those are families that didn't attend family teacher teams. So you can just kind of see the difference there.
Yeah, and so on the back end, you can also kind of keep track of that easily too, of how are students doing with families that attended family teacher teams. There's definitely a difference in families here, as well as what we saw in iReady before, who attended family teacher teams and families who did not. There's a significant growth increase. So on the, again, we said this is kind of the teacher facing end now. If you go ahead and zoom forward a little bit for me, Addie. This is more of what you would share with individual students, families. So when they come to family teacher teams and you're giving them where my student is at, you could just give them this very individualized data of one student who, same thing, you see the gray is that baseline piece of how many letter sounds they know, blue is the next touch point, and then you have 2 more touch points here. So they did 4 of how many letter sounds they grew. So it's still using a data point, and you're creating a goal each time, and you get to see that growth. And you're also sharing that growth with families. Look where they are now. So let's touch back in parent teacher conferences, and I can show you the same graph point of look how much they've grown, and it's very visual, and it's just a huge point of celebration, and it's very individualized, which we really are with iReady growth and really focusing on that growth piece. We're really excited about it to be very individualized and personalized to each student and their family. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so. I think the only thing to note here is I just realized there's a typo. So the blue bar is supposed to be 10, 19, 18. So that was a month and a half after our first family teacher teams. I just don't want that to be confusing to anyone. Okay, thanks, Jana. So just kind of thinking about the benefits and outcomes that we get from having these family teacher teams on our campuses and really building those relationships. So we are really creating, we keep referring to 30 tutors in our classrooms, but we're really tapping into the asset of families in our classrooms. Every single person in Cajon Valley is an asset, and we need to make sure that we are utilizing all of them. So staff is an asset, students are an asset, but the missing piece was always families being an asset. So we are creating 32 tutors in our classrooms. We are tapping into the potential that every single family at our school can help us with and give us in whatever capacity that is. And it is going to be a different capacity for every family. Some families might only be able to do that one actionable thing once you build that relationship. But some families, once you build that relationship, they're joining the PTA, they're volunteering for activities on campus, they're hoping to become a noon duty on campus. So really building that relationship is tapping into the resources that are our families. And we're really empowering families. Thinking about family engagement is really thinking about family empowerment and thinking about how we can put tools in their hands so that they're empowered at home to sustain the things that we're doing at school, like the researcher talked about in the video before. The sustainability of starting with TK and going all the way through their time at Cajon Valley, we're just building and building and building that empowerment for our families. Again, like Jana talked about with the data, we are definitely boosting our academic success and growth for our students. We're creating awareness for our families. It's not shame, but it is awareness around where our students are coming in and what a year's growth looks like for our students and for their children. And one thing that I like to talk about, just coming from starting family teacher teams as a teacher, I always found that the impact was when families were working on, let's say, letter sounds, for example, at home, it shifted my small group instruction because I really could see the students that were working on some of those basic foundational skills at home. They got to go and work on more of enhancement activities and different, maybe more challenging activities for them. And then I could focus in on those students that really still needed that foundational skill. So it really does impact instruction in our classroom as well when we get parents on board to helping work on academics at home as well. And then lastly, just kind of nuts and bolts, it really helps to open the communication with families. We have Class Dojo, we have Parent Square, we have all these things, but when we build that relationship, we really are building a buy-in for parents to check these things regularly and to be on top of the communication that we use at our school district and our sites. So that's really just kind of a nuts and bolts thing, but I think it is a benefit and an outcome of having family teacher teams at our schools.
I would say that it's different than nuts and bolts and more than nuts and bolts, because if you talk to anybody in a relationship through a marriage, communication is the foundation of success or failure. So I'd say it's the heart.
It's the heart of it all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're joining us for a couple of these presentations about family teacher teams, or if you're only joining us for this one, each one at the end, you'll find a resource page. This resource page includes the family teacher teams folder on the drive that I built. It's all in view mode. So anything that you would like to utilize for your own family teacher teams, whether you're doing it alone in your classroom or you're doing it as a school site, any of that is open, and please use and take anything you need. Just obviously make sure you make a copy. And then the data folder is part of that family teacher teams folder. So this is just the resource page for this presentation today. And that's really the end of our presentation for part 2. So Mike, do you want to just kind of wrap us up?
Yeah, just to say that everything's created. You don't need to recreate any of this. Addie has beautifully, and Jana over the years at Narinka and Addie at Meridian have created all of these items, and Addie's updated them all so they're new and current. So just steal and copy and send them out. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. Please, please, please save yourself time. Thank you so much. And Addie's going to see you in the next 3 sessions, 1, 2, and 3, or 3, 4, and 5. And yeah, it was great to see you. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good one.
Can I add really quickly?
Please.
In addition to Addie's folder and everything already being created, we're here. We're available for questions. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We want to help you make this successful in your classroom or in your school or however you're utilizing it.
And any of us can support you. Myself, Sandra, Janice, our liaisons have information that they can link you to and support you with. Reaching out to Janice specifically, but obviously the amazing resource that Addie is over at Meridian. She does have a full-time job there, but I know she's always willing to help out and talk to people for sure.
And just a reminder at the beginning, the slide deck is linked to the Alludo page, but the very second slide is all of our contact information. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.